Well, hello, 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 Bible scholars. It is such an honor to be here with you one more again. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Let's Get Ready to Bible, where we come together, we study the word together, we get smart in the Lord together, and we just have a really, really great time in fellowship. I want to say hello to everybody that is here live and for those that are coming to the replay. So listen, yesterday, we met Elihu, which is a younger friend of Job, who seemingly arrived on the scene out of nowhere. But today we're going to see and we're going to find out that he's obviously been there for quite some time, even though his presence was announced. So today we're diving into chapter 33, where Elihu decides that he needs to school Job on a thing or two about God. So I want you to grab your Bible, grab your paper, grab your pen, and let's get ready to Bible. Hello to all of you. Listen, let me tell you something. I am just so enjoying our Bible studies together. I guess I say that every single day, but I really do enjoy it. I just get so much out of it. I want to give a special shout out to Jeannie. Good morning to you. And you know what? I noticed it too, Jeannie. She said, "Hey Doc, I noticed that the number of subscribers are 4.14K. Yo, I noticed it right before I jumped on here. I was hype about that. So thank you. Thank you for always paying attention, because, a lot of times I just don't. I don't pay attention to that. I want to say good morning to Bishop Spencer. Good morning to you. And because the little Anna Grace didn't say anything, I don't think that she's with you. But if she is, good morning to my beautiful princess, Anna Grace. Good morning, Amanda. Good morning, Alicia. And to my little beauty, Serenity. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Mom Joyce. So excited that you're here. Good morning, Mom Sheila. That's my mom over there in Richmond. Y'all, listen, I'm so blessed. I collect moms. I have godmoms all over the place. And so it's just a blessing. I'm so blessed. I'm so wealthy from who God has put in my life. Good morning to you, Lisa. So excited that you're here. Good morning, Shauna Mason. Excited that you're here. Ash Shakir, what up, though? So glad that you are here as well. So like I said, we're diving into chapter 33. And I want to just ask everyone that if you are finding value in any of these Bible studies, and please do me a favor and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We're growing and it's awesome. And you just saw where Dr. Jeannie said that we're at 4.14K followers. Oh, that is just, it's such a blessing. And I'm just so honored. Listen, if this is your first time finding value, if this is your first time joining the Bible studies, I don't want you to worry about that. I want you to stay right here. Stay here. You haven't missed out, right? Because when you look at the Bible, we can open the Bible and start from anywhere. So just stay here, get the lesson, glean from the lesson, and then you can go back and catch up. Literally every single Bible study that we have done is available on letsgetreadytobible.com. So if this is your first time, just stick around, baby. You're going to enjoy yourself. And then just join us live. Join us live the next time that we are together. Good morning to you, Jennifer. I love you and adore you. I just saw some of the stuff that you were making. I think I woke up in the middle of the night and I just saw some of the beautiful things that you were creating, and you are doing it, girl. You are doing it, girl. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing. I so appreciate all of you who share, because a lot of you will hit me up and say, "Hey, I shared this with my family members, et cetera, et cetera." And we can tell, I can tell, because we're growing. And that's just awesome. Okay. So we met Elihu yesterday. I don't know how everybody feels about Elihu. I personally am pretty amused by him. I'm amused. I feel like he's very bold in what he says. No holds barred, clearly. And he came to teach Job and all of the friends a couple, 2-3 things. He came to teach them some things. And today specifically in Job chapter 33, he is going to address Job specifically. Now, this is what I just want to point out. And I'm not trying to skew anybody's thoughts about Elihu. But the funny thing is, when you look at, if you pay attention to commentaries, because I do that. I like to study the text. I take my own notes. And then I like to see, okay, what are some of the scholars saying? I enjoy doing that to see if there are you know, if there's a different perspective. And what I have kind of found from people when it comes to Elihu is that people are really put off by him. Like they don't like his style. They feel like he's very arrogant. And a lot of them that I've seen, that it's almost as if they feel like he doesn't help the situation. And so to be honest with you, I really was in prayer about this thing. You know, I and I know y'all like, Tamika, what are we doing? Like, you know, the Bible's already been written. What are you praying about? But I really wanted to get a revelation on just who he was, because I don't see him that way. Now, of course, I do find him amusing. I do think that he possibly comes off a little pompous and arrogant. However, it's like I feel like the Lord showed me a little bit of myself in him today. And you know, I had a situation where, you know, I had some church leaders that actually, you know, had reached out to me and they asked for prayer, and I began to pray for them. And this was just recently. And one of the things that I said to them, I said, listen, I know that I don't carry the title that you have, but I want you to know that I don't speak unless God gives me something to say, because the Lord began to use me prophetically. And for some reason, I felt the need that I needed to say that. I don't always say that, but I was like, listen, I know that you don't know me. I know I don't carry the title that you carry, but I don't say things that God doesn't tell me to say. I was like, I have too much fear of the Lord to do that. I'm not trying to speak words that he didn't say to me, right? And so it's amazing. As I was reading through this, I was like, I think maybe I feel like Elihu in a lot of ways is doing that, you know, because I'll tell you, when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon me, I do speak with a boldness. And the thing is, the Lord has called me into spaces where I speak to those in leadership. You know, the Lord he's put me in places where he gives me instruction to say things to bishops and apostles and pastors. And to be honest with you, a lot of times I don't even know who they are. And really that's how it started. I didn't necessarily I didn't know who these people were, but the Lord knows if I tell her to say it, even if she's trembling in her boots, she's going to say it. And then I would find out later, yeah, you know, they would say, you know, I am a pastor. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? I wouldn't have said anything to you, right? Others would be like, I'm a bishop. And I'm like, if you would have said that to me, I would have never said anything to you. And they were like, I know, you know, and a lot of them were saying, a lot of people don't speak into my life. And because there is that fear, and I get it. And so like the Lord kind of trained me in that way. So now when somebody does have a title, I'm not intimidated by that. I do think that I have more tact than Elihu, right? But I definitely speak with a boldness, and I carry myself with a boldness that a lot of people probably don't. And so I see Elihu a little bit differently than a lot of people do. And maybe, and you guys know, I literally study daily. So I'm learning as you're learning. And so maybe my thoughts will change in another chapter, but that's how I see him. I see him as somebody that he is young. He doesn't feel confined by, as what we would say, by religion. He doesn't feel strapped in by that. And I think maybe he doesn't have as much refinement, but I think that his boldness was probably needed, you know. And there have been times that even my own children may say something to me, and I know it's God. Like, I know it's God. They're not rude or anything, but they know that it's God. And so, all right, let's go ahead and dive in. And you let me know what your thoughts are about Elihu. So, all right. So our first couple of verses, really the very first 7 verses of Job chapter 33, Elihu was going to speak directly to Job. And he basically tells Job, listen, I am your spokesman before God. You know, I am that mediator that you've been asking about. Okay. And so let's dive into that. For those who this is your first time, we are in the King James Version, and oftentimes I will clarify a thought utilizing the New Living Translation. And if I do switch between versions, then you will know it. You'll know. I'll let you know. But for today, I think I'm primarily just in the King James Version. All right, here we go. Verse 1 says, Wherefore, Job, I pray thee, hear my speeches and hearken to my words. Verse 2, behold, now I have opened my mouth. My tongue hath spoken in my mouth. Like, he really does like to hear himself talk. So, you know, really, Elihu's like, listen to my words, Job. Pay attention to what I have to say. And then he declares something profound that maybe they just didn't catch. He says, I open my mouth and my tongue speaks in my mouth. Like, you gotta love this guy, right? Like, It's almost like saying, like, I have a pen and I'm writing with a pen, with the ink that's inside of my pen. On this paper, I write with the pen. It's like the fact that he's narrating what he's doing, it's just classic. I love this guy. Okay. I love him. You can't help but just enjoy him. So again, what I want to point out here, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it just is what it is. Elihu is really familiar here. He actually calls Job out directly. He calls him by name. Wherefore, Job? Like hey, Job, listen, this is for you, sir. This is for you, sir. Like, so he calls out Job directly, whereas the other friends, they beat around the bush. Okay. They were like, I feel like they were almost passive aggressive in the way that they handled Job. But like Elihu's like, listen, I don't have time for any of this stuff. I didn't like how y'all handled him anyway. So let me just be 100% clear that I'm talking to you, Job. Job, to those of y'all that don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm talking to Job, Job, talking to him. All right, here we go. Verse 3 says, my words shall be of the uprightness of my heart, and my lips shall utter knowledge clearly. He's like, listen, I speak sincerely, and I'm speaking the truth. Verse 4, the Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. So he's like, listen, the Spirit of the Lord, he made me, and he breathes into me. And in other words, he's like, listen, it is God that gives me revelation. So, I speak with sincerity. I'm speaking to you with all truth, which really is kind of what I had said to these higher up pastors, the other day. I was like, listen, I only say what God tells me to say. I'm too afraid of the Lord to ever make something up, right? I literally pretty much kind of had this conversation. I just don't think it came off arrogantly. But anyway, so he's like, I speak with sincerity. I speak with truth. God made me, he gives me life, and God is the one that is giving me this revelation. So what Elihu right here is saying is that he is God's spokesperson, that he's the person that Job has been asking for. If we were to travel, and I'm not going to travel there at this moment, but you can do this in your own times and mark this in your own notes, that if you remember in Job chapter 9, verses 32 through 33, where, Job was in the courtroom of heaven, and he's like, I just wish I had a mediator that could communicate for me to God and from God to me, because like, obviously we got a failure to communicate. And he's like, I just wish I had a mediator that would help me. And Elihu was like, have no fear. I am he. I am the spokesperson that you asked for, right? And this right here also lets us know that Elihu has most likely been around a lot longer than when we saw him come on the scene, 2 chapters ago. Or was it just yesterday? Just yesterday, right? So in chapter 32. So some would also say that Elihu was really anxious to demonstrate to Job and his friends that he was just as good as they are, just as spiritual and just as wise as they are. And I mean, I guess in so many ways, maybe that is what he's doing. I think that a lot of people are probably looking at Elihu and again, seeing his boldness as being arrogant. I don't know. You let me know how you see it. I don't really see it that way, but I think it's because I related to him. Like, I feel like the Lord showed me like, okay, no, this is kind of what you did. You did the same thing, and you by no means were being arrogant, because I wasn't at all. Right. So, and while it may come off arrogant, it's possible that he just wanted them to understand that he had spent time with God and that he only spoke when God wanted him to. Right. Because people oftentimes, I'm 44, but God puts me in places with people that are far senior than I am. And a lot of times they do treat me like a baby. And I have now learned, I kind of told you about it yesterday. I've learned I don't have to prove myself to anybody. But the reality is a lot of people don't spend time with God. Like, how many people do you know that you have said to them, come to this Bible study? There's this Bible study every single morning. You will learn something more about the Bible that you never thought about. How many people have you told about this Bible study and they're not here, right? So just because somebody is older, it doesn't mean that they spend time with God. It doesn't mean that they spend time with God in prayer. It doesn't mean that they're fasting. It doesn't mean that they're in their Bible. And if you remember yesterday, Elihu was like, listen, just because you're older doesn't necessarily mean that you have as much wisdom as you think you do. Because I'm going to tell you guys, The Lord increases wisdom. He increases revelation and knowledge with the time that is spent. If you want to know God in a better way, you got to spend time. You got to give him time. And we get upset when people seem to have accelerated past us. First of all, we got to check ourselves, because what we see is not always what is taking place. Number two, it's not our business, because we don't know what people do in their private time. I'm like really shaking this table. We don't know what they're doing in their private time. We have no right to try to compare ourselves to somebody else. But in the off chance that we do, because we are human, right? If we see that somebody is accelerating, that they're being put on platforms or what have you, first of all, we need to stop being seduced by platforms, right? Because everybody that has a platform has a seat at a table. They aren't all necessarily doing what is right. And I only want God to put me at tables that he says I'm supposed to be there. Because you might sit at a table and eat some poison. And none of us have time for that, right? So y'all spend time with God and watch how he accelerates himself in your life. That's the ultimate payoff. That is the gift. That's the excitement of it all. I love it. And really, I like to challenge myself to really spend time with the Lord, because of how much it just really, really blesses me. So let's keep going. Verse 5. Verse 5 says, if thou canst answer me, set thy words in order before me, stand up. So he's like, listen, and remember, he's talking to Job. He's like, listen, answer me if you can. Okay. Like, respond to what I've just said, refute what I've just said, if you can. He says, make your case and you can go ahead and take the stand, right? Remember, y'all, we're in this like proverbial imaginary courtroom. If you can check me on anything that I've said, Job, go ahead and you do it if you can. If not, I'm gonna keep on talking. It's pretty much what he's saying. So then he says in verse 6, behold, I am according to thy wish in God's stead. I also am formed out of the clay. So he says, look, you and I both belong to God. And because, and I also was formed out of the clay. So like, he's like, listen, like, be chill, be easy. Like, we both come from the same place, brother. Okay. Verse 7. I don't know where I got this like 1970s talk. I don't know. Let me stop, brother. Like, okay. Verse 7. Behold, my terror shall not make thee afraid, neither shall my hand be heavy upon thee. Now, let's just again break down these verses. He's like, listen, Job, I'm going to teach you some things. And you can respond if you want to. You can respond if you think that you can. And he says, but listen, you don't have to be afraid, because I'm not going to come down on you like these other guys did. Like, he's making the distinction. I'm not going to come down on you like they did. You and I are the same person. We both belong to God. We've both been created by God. So again, we see Elihu has clearly been around. He's heard how they've spoken to Job. He's even heard Job's response to the things that they've said to him, right? And so he's like, listen, don't be afraid. I am not beating up on you. And I think that some of us have had to have courageous conversations with people. And we said, listen, I'm not beating up on you. Like this may feel a little heavy, but I'm not beating up on you. I don't look at you the way that other people have looked at you. I think all of us have had to say that a time or two to somebody. And that's really what Elihu was saying here. Verses 8 through 11, Elihu was basically going to say to Job, so you think that you're without sin. And so again, he said, look, I'm about to teach you some stuff. And let us go. Verse 8, surely there has spoken in mine hearing, and I've heard the voice of thy word saying, I am clean without transgression. I am innocent. Neither is there iniquity in me. So he's saying, listen, he said, you've spoken. I've been in earshot of this. So I've been sitting around listening to this, and I've heard everything that you said. And he's saying, look, you've said I'm pure, I'm without sin, I'm innocent, and I don't have any guilt. He's starting to sound like the other three friends, even though he said that that's not what I'm doing to you. He does sound like him though, right? Verse 10. Behold, he findeth occasions against me. He counteth me for his enemy. He putteth my feet in the stocks. He marketh all my paths. So what we're seeing here is like in this set of verses, Elihu was recounting the things that Job has said. Like he's like, oh God, you're contending against me. You're fighting against me. God, you've made me an enemy. You put my feet in shackles and you've chained me, right? Like this is, how you do that. Like I'm telling you that this is what you said. he marketh all my paths. And so even though Elihu has claims to listen carefully, Courtney, to Job, Job didn't say that he was pure, that he was without transgression, that he was innocent, or that he was sinless. Job has said, he says, like, I don't believe that I've done anything to deserve the punishment. And so when we look at this, on one hand, Elihu really could have been mishearing Job and misunderstanding what Job was communicating, just like the other friends. Or perhaps what Elihu is about to do is say, listen, you keep saying that you don't think that you're without sin, but my dude, the stuff that you're saying is exactly that. Like, you're trying to make this, in so many ways, it's almost like you're trying to say, I'm not saying I'm impure. I'm not saying that I'm innocent. I'm not saying this, but that's exactly what you said. And I'm going to tell you why what you're saying is contrary to what you believe that you're saying. Y'all feel what I'm saying here? So there's kind of two sides to the coin here. I'm kind of leave that up to you to decipher what you think it is. But I do want to take a moment and rehash what Job has said, because even though Job has said stuff like, Lord, I think that you're fighting against me. I feel like you look at me like I'm one of the enemies. And, God, you've put my feet in the stocks. You've hedged me in to everything, to this calamity. And you put a mark on me, right? Because Job did say that stuff. Now, Job maybe just felt like he was ranting and releasing. He didn't see it as though he was saying that he was without sin. But to Job's credit, Job did make the case of, listen, I know that I'm not righteous before God. So let's just rehash this. In Job 6:3, he said, therefore my words have been rash. So at one point, Job's like, listen, I've definitely spoke a little bit too much, God. Like, my voice, I said a little bit too much, God. So could you just please forgive me, sir? Because I don't know why I sound like a slave right now, but could you please believe me, sir? Because I want to take my words back, because what I said was crazy. This was when he was saying, why did you even allow me to be born? Why did you allow me to be conceived? Why don't you just block me off of the calendar? So this comes after Job has just said this stuff to the Lord. In Job 7:21, and you guys may want to take screenshots of this because I'm zooming through this. In Job 7:21, Job said to the Lord, why then do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? So he asked the question, listen, if I've transgressed, like if I've committed something, if I committed a sin, then like, could you pardon it? Could you forgive me? Could you remove this sin out of my life? Job 9:2, he says, how can a man be righteous before God? Like, he was recognizing that God was great and nobody was greater than God. And he was saying, listen, compared to you, Lord, like, I'm definitely not right. Like, I'm trying to be right, but I'm definitely not on your level. Job 9:28, he says, I know that you will not hold me innocent, and this was because, Job was like, listen, even if I were to plead my case, I'm not going to be seen as innocent, because I'm going to be seen as if I have a lot of pride. So Job even was kind of checking himself right there in Job chapter 8, like, I don't think I've done anything, but I know that if I say that I haven't done anything, you're going to look at me like I'm being really prideful. And I know that pride is a sin. In Job 13:26, he says, for you write bitter things against me and make me inherit the iniquities of my youth. And so Job was like, did I do something in my youth that you're now punishing me for? So we see where Job is recognizing, listen, I haven't been this upright man. Like, I haven't walked away. Because if we remember, y'all, I always bring us back to, in Job chapter 1, we learned that Job was considered upright. He was considered blameless, right? And the Lord himself said, there is nobody in the land like Job. Now, Job didn't know how God was bragging on him, but we do. But so Job here is saying, listen, I wasn't always right, honey, because in my youth, I did a thing or two. That's the way I would see it. And he's like, are you punishing me for something I did back then? And then finally, another thing that we can look at is in Job 19:20, he says, though I were righteous, my own mouth would condemn me. Though I were blameless, it would prove me perverse. And again, this is him saying, if I were to argue and say that I'm righteous, my own mouth would be condemning me because it would be speaking out of pride. And if I said that I was blameless, it would be like my mouth would be speaking things in a perverse way. Like it would prove me perverse. It would prove that I'm full of iniquity, is really what he was saying. So Job knew, really, this is what we know, that Job knew that he was a sinner, right? He knew he was a sinner in a general sense. And he knew that he definitely could not be considered righteous compared to the Lord. But again, it is to be said that perhaps that, like the other friends, that Elihu misunderstood the feelings that Job had, because we see where he kind of puts in context of Job's claims to being a sinless perfection. So he's looking at what Job has said. And on one hand, we really could say, well, you're just like his other friends. But what I love about God, like I said, is as I was sitting here and I was getting ready to come on live, and it's like the Lord just was like, no, maybe you do need to take another look at Elihu and his motives behind the things that he was saying. And so this actually was a note that I had before the Lord said this to me. So I'm actually going to wipe this note out. Not this one. This one right here, that Elihu misunderstood Job's feelings, because I really don't think that. I think that Elihu is truly responding. I think he's responding to what Job has said. And he's trying to get Job to see where he has erred, even though he didn't think that he did. And you guys, sometimes we make mistakes with how we handle God. We really do. We mishandle him, and we take grace for granted. And sometimes we speak crazy. We talk out of both sides of our face, and thank God that he is merciful, because he doesn't tear us upside our head, okay? So Ash Shakir says, seems to me like Job is a prophetic reference to a perfect sacrifice. Oh, wow. Without spot or blemish, Jesus Christ. Perhaps the restoration of Job is a prophetic reference to the resurrection. That is a really amazing observation. Wow. And if you guys remember, especially those that have been here throughout our entire study of Job, we see so many references to Jesus Christ throughout this book of Job. I think that's a really interesting observation. And I think it's one that we need to tuck in the back of our mind, and we need to maybe, consider that. I think that's really powerful. It is really powerful. And you're absolutely right, Lisa. God's ways are not our ways. And so we don't always understand what is being done. And so we got to be really careful and check ourselves with the stuff that we say and how we handle the Lord. So in these next couple of verses, Elihu is challenging Job that God has actually answered him. Because if you guys remember, Job has spent a lot of time saying, why won't you answer me? Why aren't you talking to me? And Elihu was challenging him, and he's saying, listen, God has spoken to you, but you didn't notice it. Okay, let's break this down. Verse 12 says, behold, in this thou art not just. I will answer thee that God is greater than man. So he's like, you're wrong, and I'm going to show you why. He's like, because God is greater than any human being. So listen, you've been wrong, son. Right? So he's like, so again, this is the connection to the last verse where he's like, you say that you're blameless. You say that you're pure. You say that you're without sin, but I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm going to tell you wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. So he says, why dost thou strive against him? For he giveth not account of any of his matters. So he's like, so why are you bringing a charge against God? Why are you blaming God? Why are you saying that he doesn't respond to people's complaints? He's like, why are you doing that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are you lying on God? I get upset when I feel like people speak crazy about my God. I've had to learn how to like chill on it too, because I get upset. I'm like, why are you talking about my God like that? And that's really what Elihu's saying here. He's like, why are you doing that? Why are you saying that God doesn't answer people? Verse 14, he says, for God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. So he's like, listen, God speaks once, he speaks twice, he speaks thrice. I just wanted to say thrice, even though it wasn't in there. And he's like, God speaks, and maybe you're just not paying attention. You perceiveth it not. Verse 15, he says, in a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the bed. So he's saying, listen, maybe he's spoken to you in your dreams. Maybe you've been, maybe you've had a night vision, right? Maybe when you've been really deep in your sleep, the Lord has spoken to you. When you've been wrestling, the slumberings, when you've been wrestling around in bed, maybe that's when he has spoken to you. Verse 16. Then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction. He said, in those moments, there are times that maybe he's whispered in your ear and he's given you instruction. Verse 17, that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. So he says, when he speaks to you in your ear, like he whispers in their ear and he seals their instruction. And some versions say he terrifies them with warnings, that he may withdraw man from his purpose, that he will cause him to turn from doing wrong and will keep him from pride. I have been a witness to this, where the Lord at different times has given me dreams where he's said something to me. The Lord in the middle, like as I'm waking up, I'm coming out of sleep. It really, there have been moments where Lord speaks right in this good ear. It is my right ear, literally. I'm not even being funny. I don't know if it looks like the right on your side or if it's coming off as the left. I don't know. Anyway, this is my right ear. It's what I'm pointing to. And there have been times I'm coming out of the dream and the Lord will whisper something. Okay. And so I would say to you, that has nothing to do with, I mean, it could, but the Lord seeks to speak to all of us, y'all. He does. He really does. Being around prophets, it's amazing. Being prophetic is amazing, but you don't need a prophet for God to speak to you. We're not in that dispensation. We can go to God ourselves. We're in that space where he's Abba Father. He's our daddy. And so when you do have dreams, have you ever said, Lord, did you give me that dream? Are you trying to say something to me? If you haven't done it, I would implore you to do that. When you start having dreams, God, were you saying something to me in this dream? And you got to ask the Lord. And sometimes he responds very quickly, and sometimes you have to seek him for it. Sometimes you'll find something in a dream and you need to jump into the word and say, did something like this happen? These are things that I do, right? And sometimes, again, as you're coming out of your sleep, you may have a whisper in your ear. God, is that you? Like if you haven't learned to recognize his voice, Lord, is that you? Y'all start writing things down. Write out your dreams. Write them out. Even the ones that are scary, write them out. Lord, what is this about? Now, I'm going to tell you, if you watch a lot of horror movies and different things like that, what you dream is probably going to be skewed. Okay? Because these horror films, to me personally, I believe that there is a lot of demonic activity that is attached to these horror films. Why do people want to be scared? And I'm not judging you if you're one of those people that you enjoy being scared. But to me, I feel like there's a lot of these films, these demonic films, a lot of them are very demonic. So I just choose not to watch them. But, so a lot of people, they'll watch them and they like going to sleep. And then you have Freddy Krueger in the background, even though some of y'all may not even know who that is if you're younger than I am. But you have Freddy Krueger in the background screaming and, eating people, whatever he did. I don't remember what he did, right? And you wonder why you're having nightmares. Well, it's what you've opened yourself up to. Okay. Yeah. Ashley Keir says, I used to keep a dream journal. You guys write these things down, date them, put a timestamp on it, and pray about it. So when I dream, and I promise you, I'm going. So it's amazing. I believe that the Lord has this for some instruction today. So I'm sorry, you guys, that this is indeed Bible study, but when he leads me in a different direction, I follow. But, when you're having these dreams, hurry up and write it out while you can remember it. And then you take that to the Lord in prayer. But I put a date and I timestamp it. I also have a note. I have an actual note app called Day One. I don't even know why I'm pulling it up because I don't think you're going to be able to see it. You can't see it. Anyway, it's called Day One. And I don't know if you can see it from back here. Yeah, you can't. But I literally have all of my dreams here. And when I started utilizing this, I started this in December of 2023. So there will be times that something comes to me and I'll go right back to my notes app and I go to my dream section and I'm like, Lord, you did say this. Because he doesn't always, the manifestation of what you've dreamt doesn't always come about immediately. But stop leaning to your own understanding and expecting that you're going to remember everything, right? So I'm telling you, when I come out of it, I write it down. I write down as much as I can remember. And you will find that when you do that, the Lord will even bring more revelation to you. You will find that. But you be careful. Don't you add anything to it. You pray over that dream. You pray over it. God, what is it that you want me to know, right? It's so important that we make Holy Spirit our co-pilot. That is why he's there. He helps us to understand these different things, okay? All right, y'all, let's get through this lesson today. Lisa says, I will try this. Yes, you guys. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. Absolutely. And one thing that you'll find that as you pray, the Lord will begin speaking to you. So for those of you that have been like, I don't know when God is talking to me, the more time you spend with him, the more you're going to know his voice, right? The word says, my sheep know my voice. And so even when I go into prayer, I actually have a handwritten notebook, because as I'm praying and God starts to speak, I'm writing. I start writing. And then I have to go back to it a lot of times. And it's encouragement, right? It's meat for my soul sometimes when I go back and look at what the Lord has said. Okay. 18, he keepeth back his soul from the pit and his life from perishing by the sword. So he says, when the Lord, when he speaks to you, whether it's in dreams or visions, or he whispers to you in the middle of the night, he keeps them from doing wrong. He keeps them from being prideful. He keeps he protects them from dying, right? This is what he's saying. So here's my heat check. When you ask God a question, do you wait for an answer? Do you actually take time to listen? Or do you just talk, ask, and run? And I said, ask. I hope y'all heard that K. The K. Isn't that the sign language for K? I hope you heard it, because that's what I said. I have big teeth, and sometimes letters get lost behind my teeth, but I put the K back there, friends. Okay? So when you talk to the Lord, do you just say, hey, Lord, what's up? How you doing? I want, can you give me? And then you just take off running? Or do you take time to talk to God and you give him space to talk back? This is what I've had to be intentional about, right? Some people, that's easy for them to do. That has not always been easy for me to do. And sometimes it's not, if I'll be very transparent. And which is part of the reason why I started keeping a journal. Sorry, y'all, my eyes are tired. That's why you saw them roll around in my head like that. That's why I started journaling as I pray, because it really does help me to focus. Like I've been really intentional about praying and being focused when I'm trying to connect with the Lord, because I don't like the fact that my thoughts can get distracted. And that really is just human nature. And again, some people, they don't have a problem with praying, and they can just go and go and go and not be distracted in their quiet moments. And that's not necessarily the case for me. So I have to be very intentional when I go before the Lord. And I'm just letting you know, it's okay if that is you too. Be intentional, but seek after the Lord. Seek after him. You will find him. He will find you, right? The word says to ask and the door shall be, ask and he will answer. Knock, the door will be open, right? I got that completely out of the way, but ask, the Lord's going to answer you. Seek and you will find him. Knock and the door shall be open. Like, Tamika, get your life together. It's Matthew 7:7. Come on, girl, get your life. Okay. So here we have in verses 19 through 28, Elihu is going to say, listen, Job, God spoke to you when you're suffering. Like, I know that you've been suffering, but he spoke to you in your pain to save your soul from death. Verse 19 says, he is chastened also with pain upon his head, and the multitude of his bones with strong pain. So he says, listen, God disciplines people with pain while they're on their sickbed. And he says, even while they're aching in their bones, they're being disciplined, but God he's chastening them. Like, you're not being punished, but this is for your making, is really what he's trying to say. So verse 20 says, so that his life abhorreth bread and his soul dainty meat. He says, so he's really going back and describing everything that Job's going through. So he's like, look, he chastens, he corrects with the pain while you're on your sick bed, while your bones are aching, even when you've lost your appetite from even the most delicious food. So listen, he's literally about to go all the way down he's about to go all the way down all of the things that Job has been going through. Verse 21, his flesh is consumed away, that it cannot be seen. So he's emaciated, and his bones that were not seen stick out. Verse 22, yea, his soul draweth near unto the grave, and his life to the destroyers, right? So he's like, listen, even when you feel like you're at death's door and you think that the death angel is waiting for you, he's saying there is purpose in your pain. And he's saying sometimes God uses our pain to save our life. Now, I do want to take a minute and park here, because in what he just described in verses 19 through 22, it's almost like, as I was reading this, I'm like, wait a minute, Christ went through this. So it's almost like a prophetic description of Jesus. And so when I saw that, I went to research it. And other scholars have considered this, and they've argued whether or not this is actually a messianic prophecy. And by messianic prophecy, that's a prophecy that foretells of the Messiah to come, right? And so a lot of the actual scholars, where they're like in the Hebrew text and all that stuff, they haven't like really definitively said that they think this is a messianic prophecy, but I'm going to show you how I believe it definitely does point to Christ. And I think that like it was very profound to me. So when we look at this, we see where, Jesus, he came from heaven, right? So we know that he came from heaven. We see that in 1 Timothy 3:16. Oh, wait, excuse me. I need to read verse 23 to you so that this makes sense why I'm here. Okay. Verse 23 says, if there be a messenger with him, an interpreter, one among 1,000, to show unto man his uprightness. Okay. So now he's just gone through all of the things, like he's saying what Job has gone through. And I think it was Ash Shakir that was just saying, is Job kind of like a depiction of Christ, right? I think this kind of speaks to it, okay, in so many ways, to kind of answer that question to Ash Shakir. So again, Elihu goes through, he kind of recounts all the things that Job has gone through, and then he kind of mirrors the question that Job had. If there be a messenger with him, some versions say if there is an angel, if there be a messenger with him, an interpreter, one among 1,000, to show unto man his uprightness. So he's like, if there's an angel or a messenger that comes from heaven, a messenger that will intercede for a person and declare that he is upright. Now, again, Job was like, I need somebody to mediate for me. I need somebody to speak to God for me, to tell him that I ain't done nothing wrong, son. I ain't done nothing wrong, Daddy God, right? And so when we look at this and we see how it points to Christ, we know that God wrapped himself in flesh. And we see that he came, Jesus came from heaven. You can read that in 1 Timothy 3:16. We know that Jesus was without sin, right? He was without sin. 2 Corinthians 5:21. We also see that in 1 John 3:5. You guys may again want to screenshot this. We know that Christ shed his blood to pay our ransom. Mark 10:45 is just one of the verses that speaks to that. And Jesus is our high priest who intercedes for us. And we see that in Romans 8:34. So here we go. We see Christ reflected right here in Job 33. My God. My goodness. So yummy. The word is so good. The word is so rich. Verse 25, it says, his flesh shall be fresher than a child's. He shall return to the days of his youth. So again, let's just go back to 23. What happened to 24? Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Because I was like, what in the world? What happened? All right. Tamika. Give me a second, friends. What did I do? Y'all must have been sleepy when I put these slides in here. What? Y'all, please give me a second. Because I am confused. Okay. Okay. This is crazy. Okay. All right. I see what I did. I put a bunch of these things in here twice. Okay. Girl, you were tired. Okay. Thank you guys for your patience. Because I was like, what is going on? Okay. So we see here, if there be a messenger with him to interpret one among 1,000 of his uprightness, verse 24 says, then he is gracious unto him and saith, deliver him from going down to the pit. I have found a ransom. So that even that speaks more to what I just showed you in terms of that depiction of Jesus, right? And so really what he's saying, he's like, listen, if you would just, if you would just respond to the messenger and admit God's greatness, then he's going to deliver you. He's going to deliver you. And he says, your flesh is going to be fresher than a child's, and you'll return to the days of your youth. Verse 26, you'll pray unto God. And I'm saying you, but you guys read how it is. But this is him talking to Job. You will pray to God, and he's going to be favorable unto you. And you will see his face with joy. Like God is going to restore the joy in your life if you would just recognize him, recognize what he has said, do whatever he told you to do, even in the middle of your night terrors. Because in Job chapter 7, I believe it is, Job spoke about how he was having nightmares, right? And so that makes sense why Elihu would say, maybe in those night terrors, he speaks to you and you're afraid because he's trying to give you instruction to save your life. So he says, you're going to see his face with joy, and he will render you a righteous man. He's going to make you a man that is without spot or wrinkle. Verse 27, he looketh upon men, and if any say, I have sinned and perverted that which was right, and it profited me not, he will deliver his soul from going into the pit, and his life shall be light. So whoever, if you have done wrong and you say, Lord, please forgive me. If you say, God, I didn't do everything that was right, he's going to deliver you, and you're not going to go to hell. You're not going to find yourself in Sheol, because, that's what they kept calling this. You're not going to find yourself in a pit. And what looked like darkness is going to be light in your life. Verse 28, he says, he will deliver his soul from, I already said this, y'all forgive Sleepy Girl here for putting in slides thrice times. What are we doing? Verse 29, lo, all things, lo meaning like, take heed. This is a warning. So whenever you see lo, it's like, this is a warning. Lo, all these things worketh God oftentimes with man. So he's like, listen, God does these things again and again for people. And here we have where Elihu's going to finish out this chapter, this particular speech, where he's pleading with Job to just listen to him. He's like, listen, God will do this time and time again for people. And really, in a lot of ways, what he's not saying is he's going to do that because he loves you. And y'all, I do agree with that. Sometimes we go through things because God loves us. And because God is like, listen, I'm about to arrest you right in your stupidity, because you're about to go down a path that you may not come back from. Right? God does do that. 30, to bring back his soul from the pit, to be enlightened with the light of the living. Y'all, I'm trying to tell you, a major life change for me was in 2021. When I was living a really promiscuous life. I mean, it would be seen as promiscuous. I was with one person, but I wasn't supposed to be doing that. I wasn't living righteously. And that heartbreak needed to happen because it threw me at the feet of the Father. And I was going down a path, And I threw myself at the feet of the Father, and he told me to pursue him. And I began to pursue him. And y'all see who I am today. I am not perfect, but he has done a wonderful change. A wonderful change has come over me, and I'm grateful. Here we go. Verse 31, mark well, O Job. Hearken unto me. Like, listen to me. Listen to me, Job. Mark this. Keep this in your mind. Hold thy peace, and I will speak. If thou hast anything to say, answer me. Speak, for I desire to justify thee. If not, hearken unto me, hold thy peace, and I shall teach thee wisdom. So basically, Y'all, Elihu, he's a wild boy. I enjoy Elihu. He says, look, if you got something to say, I'll wait. Yo, these are my own words, but that's the way it is. Like, you got something to say, I'll wait. Like, I'm looking forward to what you have to say. I look forward to you refuting anything that I've said to you, if you can justify yourself. He says, if not, I need you to keep listening, because I'm going to teach you a little bit of wisdom. And y'all, listen, a lot of people can't, like I said, people that were commenting about Elihu, they can't stand him. Maybe he's a little bit too familiar, but did Job say anything? And the funny thing is, there are some scholars who are like, Elihu didn't give Job any time to say anything because he likes hearing himself talk. Y'all, we know that Job is not a punk. Job has punked all of his friends thrice different times, okay? A whole bunch of times. He has punked his friends. And so this little young boy here, I think that if Job had something to say, I really do think Job would have cut in. He would have said something, but I think for once, and if you remember Elihu's whole argument yesterday to the other friends is, you didn't even respond correctly to what he was saying. You didn't respond, right? You just attacked him. You were too harsh with him. You didn't have any compassion for him. And you were very harsh with Job. Like Elihu was over them. Like he was just like, y'all, you did not respond well. This is why he did not hear you. And so then again, y'all, somebody might think that Elihu was being harsh with Job, but I find it interesting that Elihu said some similar things that the friend said, but because of how he said it, I think Job is getting it. So to me, I feel like the Lord used Elihu to begin uprooting some things so that when God comes in to speak, Job really hears him. That is my thought. I have not read ahead, y'all. I haven't read ahead, but that's my thought. This was a really great lesson. I'm enjoying Elihu. He's a wild boy. I enjoy him. Father God, we thank you so much for your word. We thank you for your teachings. We thank you for the humor, even in all things. Lord, we thank you with how you help us to relate to those that are even in the Bible. Lord, I ask you that this word continue to just be meat for us on today. And Lord, I ask you that there continue to be change and transformation in our lives. In the name of Jesus, Lord, I ask you that you just keep us in our right mind. Help us to keep our emotions intact on today. Help us to keep our attitudes at bay. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right. I love you all. Is today Thursday? Excuse me. Friends, today is Thursday. And if you remember, I have amended the Bible study schedule. So today is Thursday. So this is the last day for our Bible study on this week. And we'll be back on Monday. I am so excited about something God dropped in my spirit to do yesterday. And I cannot wait to just introduce it to all of you. Cause I'm really excited. He's answered a prayer that I've laid before him for a long time. And years I've been asking God to do a thing with children. And the Lord gave me revelation yesterday. It was like all of a sudden when I wasn't even looking, he did. So I just want to encourage you guys that if you've been asking God for a thing, keep asking, keep seeking him for an answer, keep knocking at his door, because he does respond. Takia's here. Hey, sweet pea. How are you? It's so good to see you. I hope that you're doing well. Well, you guys, I love you. Remember, you were created to make God famous. He's anointed you to do hard things. You all have an incredible weekend. If you've missed any of the lessons, go to letsgetreadytobible.com to catch up. And I'm going to see you on Monday, and you have a good day.